places in our children's college careers. I've kind of ended that part, and she is just beginning the whole process. So I think we'll be able to give you some good perspective on this whole college thing. And we're really happy that you're all here tonight. Like I said before, lots of credit goes out to all of you for showing up after a long day at work. You're probably tired of screens at this point in the day, but we're going to try to make this as painless as possible.
Yep, thank you. So thanks everyone so much for coming. So I just started the recording just now. We also have a meeting chat. So if anyone has questions along the way, you can feel free to put a question into the chat and one of us will respond to it, no problem. If not, we're going to leave time. Like I said, we're going to try to move through the slides, you know, not at too fast, but at a quick pace. And then we'll leave time for questions at the end as well. So whatever your preference is, whatever you feel comfortable with is great. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, you're going to share your screen?
I am.
Awesome. Okay.
Here we go. Can you see it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So just in terms of the topics that we'll cover this evening, some of you may be more or less familiar with the community college in general. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits and why community college is such a great place for students to start, whether they are planning on going to work after getting their associate's degree or whether they're going to transfer and get their four-year degree. So we're going to help familiarize you with that whole process. We're going to give you some specifics about how great Carroll is specifically, because we feel like we are one of the best community colleges in Maryland, if we don't say so ourselves. And, you know, we'll talk about some specifics about getting your student involved in the beginnings of this whole admissions process, and then once they're here, some best practices as well. And then we'll talk about some of those transfer agreements and transfer processes that we have worked out as well. And like Candace said, lots of time at the end for Q&A. When one of us isn't talking, the other one will be looking at the chat and trying to respond. But if we don't get to your question right away, it just means that one of us isn't as good as multitasking as the other one is, and that's me. I'm not as good multitasking. So we'll definitely get to all the questions, even if we don't get to them right away in the chat.
Actually, it's me because I'm too worried that I'm going to stop sharing my screen again if I do that. So we will get to it. Very good. Okay. So thank you very much, Christy. So, you know, honestly, there's so many wonderful things about Carroll. So, you know, why do students attend Carroll? Obviously, you know, we are close to home. It's a really great place for students to get started because you know, they feel safe and it's a safe environment. Many students don't feel, you know, they don't know where they want to go. They don't know what they want to do yet. So they decide to start at Carroll because there's a lot of opportunities available at Carroll Community College. They can live at home and commute. They can kind of figure out and, you know, try out different classes and different programs and determine, you know, what is going to be the right pathway for them. Access, we are open enrollment. So that means that everyone's going to be admitted. So everyone's admitted. There's no issue with that at all. So you know, this is where you're going to go. You can talk to, your friends about college and say, I'm going to be going to Carroll in the spring or in the fall. And that's wonderful. They don't have to be nervous about whether or not they're going to be accepted. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about placement and how students are, how we determine eligibility for classes. So that's a little bit different, but you're going to be admitted, you're in, and that's usually really good news. And then the other thing is affordability. So we talk with families all the time about, just how much debt is being accrued from college tuition. And so many students are thinking, they're going to try to earn a bachelor's degree and possibly a master's degree later on, depending on what field they're going to go into. And so it's such a smart choice to start off at Carroll because the tuition is lower cost because it's subsidized partially through the county if you live in this county and partially through the state. So the cost is a little bit lower for that reason. And then we'll talk more about, savings at this level can help to make the four-year more affordable when you get to that point. Okay, so why choose us first? Students attend for many reasons, and most are high-achieving, successful students. So we think it's really, really important for everyone to know, we want students to feel proud when they're saying, I'm going to Carroll Community College. They're going to have a wonderful experience. And in fact, and Christy can talk about this more if she wants to, we usually have students saying, why can't I get my bachelor's degree here? Once they've been with us for 2 years and they earn their associate degree, they really don't want to leave because they've been supported so well. So we have, last year we had 4 valedictorians of their class Victorians applied to the Hill Scholars Honors Program. So we have really, really high achieving students that are choosing to come to Carroll first, and they could really go anywhere they want to. We have associate degree programs and short-term workforce training options. So if you're earning an associate degree, really that is in theory the first half of your bachelor's degree, which we will talk more about. So if you earn your associate degree, it's very seamless to go on for your bachelor's degree in any kind of field that you want to. We also have a lot of shorter term workforce options where you're going to, attend some kind of training, whether it be, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. There's different certification programs because many people don't have time to put in, especially adults, that may have lost jobs, might need to just, rethink what they're doing and what their career is right now. So we have a lot of shorter term options too. So we just really, really want to make sure that people are aware of that. Sometimes you want to try out something shorter because often we find that students are worried about commitment, and so they don't feel comfortable committing, to years and years, but they are looking to commit to something that's short term just to see if they like it. An associate's degree is a very important step in obtaining a bachelor's degree. And the reason is that a bachelor's degree is about 120 credits. So it takes about 120 credits, some fields a little bit more, but around there to earn your bachelor's degree. So once you have an associate's degree, okay, you have a degree. And then if for some reason you transfer onto a 4-year college and you start working toward that second part of your degree and you have to stop for whatever reason, life happens, things happen. If you have to stop along the way, you don't have just a bunch of credits, you already have a degree to fall back on. So it's really important to get that associate degree. You have a credential, and then you move forward into the next phase of what you're working toward. And then the last thing is it's just so easy to transfer. So we'll talk a little bit more about transfer in a few minutes. Students are much better prepared for transfer as well because, they have experience at the college level, they've been successful in college level classes, and they just transfer students do great. And that's why 4-year schools want to accept them across the board, public schools, private schools, in-state, out-of-state.
If I can add on to that last comment, in some data that we pulled from the state at the end of last year, Carroll Community College students had the highest GPA of transfer students at any of the state schools at the University of Maryland. So it was like 95% of them had over a 3.0 or higher after they had already transferred and started taking classes as well. So we know our students are really, really well prepared, and we're really proud of that as well. So why should students come specifically to Carroll? There's so many great things that are happening on campus, and we have what I think is just the right size college for students. We're not gigantic and we're not so small like a lot of high schools, and you just feel a little bit claustrophobic after you've been there for a few years. We're the right size, and so having small class sizes where your professors know who you are. We don't have TAs teaching classes. We have, classes anywhere between 17 and 30 students inside a class. And faculty, they know their students, which is great. It helps to hold students accountable, helps to get them connected. We want students to become connected as soon as they get here. So right from the beginning, we are trying to help students make connections with each other, make connections with faculty members, and learn about different content areas that they may be interested in. We want them to try some things out and see, well, that class looks interesting. I wonder if I would like something in that field. In high school, so much of the traditional curriculum is set around very, very general history and math and English, and we want them to learn a whole bunch of other content areas as well. So we have these broad areas of study that students can learn about a content area, not only with classes in that area, but also clubs that are associated, which could be very social types of clubs or academic clubs that go along with the content. We want them to get to know their faculty. We want them to learn more about the content area through guest speakers and student panels and former students coming back and transfer schools talking about what they have to offer as well. So we're really trying to help students make connections to not only each other, but also to the area that they think they might want to study, and have them figure out as early as possible, that they do like that content area, or maybe they don't. So if you think about, if you want to become a teacher, you want to know pretty early in your educational experience whether you want to be a teacher or not. So we've got lots of different ways for students to do a little bit of experimentation while also taking classes towards their eventual degree as well. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about some of the other stuff here as we go a little bit further on.
Okay, so affordability. This slide just kind of illustrates some of the costs for, very popular schools in the state of Maryland. So at Carroll Community College, the price change, you pay per credit. So you pay for the amount of credits that you're actually taking. So what I'm showing is what it would be for full-time enrollment. So if you are taking 15 credits in a semester, it would be about $2,500, just over $2,500. That would be for tuition. The rate is a little bit higher if you're out of county, and it's a little bit higher than that if you're out of state. But if you live in the county, that's what you're going to pay. And it's just over $5,000 for 1 year. So you'll look and you'll see the University of Maryland is here. So if you're a commuter going to the University of Maryland, it's just under $11,000 a year. Many students want to go there, right? But they're not going to want to commute. They're going to want to live on campus. And that's really where the cost comes in. So if you live on campus as an in-state resident, it's going to be about $24,000 a year. You'll see Towson, commuter, around 10. They're all, pretty similar. To live on campus, it's about just about 23,000. UMBC about the same. And then Stephen is a private school that's really popular with students. And if you commute there, it's 37,000. If you live on campus, it's about 51,000. Now, these are the costs that we're talking about that are before any financial aid has been applied, before any scholarships have been applied. And, there's so many scholarships and financial aid available at the in-state, four-year community college and private level. There's, a lot of money that is available for students to apply for, but this is just the base cost. So the only thing that we don't have to offer is living on campus. We don't have dorms. So unfortunately, students are not going to be able to live on campus, but that's a big benefit for a lot of students. A lot of students just aren't ready to do that quite yet. So they're getting their feet wet, they're getting comfortable. And then the other piece of this is that if you have the lower tuition cost for, 1 year or 2 years, you get your associate's degree, then that higher tuition cost that you're looking at right now becomes affordable if you're just paying that higher rate at 2 years. And then the other thing is when students transfer, there's going to be transfer scholarships available to them as well. Which I'm going to talk about again in another minute. But the transfer scholarships are really, really a very, very important piece of, what students look at when they're determining what school they're going to go to next. So we have credit and non-credit programs. That doesn't mean a whole lot to people that don't work in higher education, we know. So for lack of a better way to describe it, all the programs that you're seeing on the left are areas of study that we have, working toward a degree program, a degree pathway. So we have, business and all the things that would fall under that, accounting, anything like that, all kinds of computer technology. We have cybersecurity, we have, programming classes, we have all kinds of things like that. Any kind of teacher education really that you can think of, you can start off any kind of teacher education pathway. Healthcare programs, we have physical therapist assistant, we have nursing, we have exercise science, all types of things. So you can kind of see the list here. And what we really just want you to know is that your student can start off whatever program that they might be interested in, they're going to have a pathway that they can begin with. And then what happens is they'll work with a dedicated advisor, an academic advisor that kind of is like sort of expert in the area that they're pursuing. So if they're interested in business, they're going to sign up and they're going to meet with an advisor that really knows business really well. And then the conversation will be very robust, especially during that initial meeting when a student first signs up for classes, but then every semester, because what they're going to do is they're really going to talk to your student about, okay, here, we're going to take these classes to get a really good feel for, is this the way you want to go? And then what are you thinking next? So the very first semester that your student enrolls in classes, an advisor is going to be talking with them about, what do you think your next step is going to be? Because even though they might not know yet, we want to plant that seed that they need to be thinking about it, and then we'll help to select out the classes that are going to be needed to go to that next school, once they complete their associate's degree. Then we have these workforce training programs. So you'll see a list of all kinds of things on the right-hand side. Real estate, information technology, healthcare. They have many healthcare options. An example of that would be dental assistant. They have a really, really popular dental assistant program. They have CNA and GNA programs that are shorter term training options to get students prepared to start working, in a much shorter term. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to go on, but it's kind of like a stopgap for them to figure out, is this going to be for me? Often they get certified, they start working, and then they can kind of move on. So those are the main differences between those two types of, programs, credit and non-credit. Christy, do you have anything you want to add there? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. The other one thing I would add perhaps is in those credit programs that are on the left-hand side there, students, once they kind of open up each of those broad categories, they're going to see some specific degrees that have to do with the thing that they're interested in the most. But we also have this customizable associate's degree that if you are really interested in an area that we don't have that specific degree, we'll work with the student and perhaps their potential transfer institution to put together a degree that will equal an associate's degree, but sets that student up really well for that. Maybe it's a specialized degree program that they're thinking about for their bachelor's degree. So the customized option that we have is also really helpful for students who just have, they don't want to major in biology, but they want to maybe eventually get into veterinary science or something like that. We can help them create an associate's degree that will well prepare them for their bachelor's in something that maybe we don't have that specific degree.
Right. And I would just add one more thing that, one of the most common things that we hear from students is, well, I'm going to come to Carroll and I'm just going to do my general education classes. And that's a great plan. That's wonderful because they're getting good experience, but we want to fold in, some classes to try to figure out what their interest is right away too. And we really do find that they're hesitant sometimes they want to do their general education classes because they don't want to commit, but it doesn't mean that they can't start trying things. Like Christy was saying earlier, it's much better to find out that you don't want to be teaching in a classroom, after you have your first experience, just helping in a classroom, your observation component, than it is to become a teacher, right? And then realize this is not for me. Okay, so what happens right now? What can students be doing right now? Of course, we're in this virtual world and everything's a little bit different. We know that. And it's really hard for students, and they're, logging into their classes and they're on the screen all day long. And if anyone thought, they wanted to work from home or, be doing school from home all day, I think everyone's having different ideas about that at this point, right? So, but, we encourage students to still meet with us and talk with us and try to do virtual tours and virtual visits and things like that. So, they can get so much information from looking at college websites. They can get so much information on our website. We have our next open house is going to be on President's Day, which is Monday, February 15th. And so we have one in the spring as well on Thursday, April 15th. So even if we are not allowed to, have people on campus, we are still going to do events like this, where we're going to kind of lay everything out, the admissions process, kind of really get students to understand what we have to offer. Sometimes we have some, meeting spaces that students can go to separately so they can kind of, talk and chat with current students to get a feel for what it's going to be like. So we try to do as many things that we can in this format to really give them a sense of what's it going to be like. And we know it's hard, especially if they've never been on campus, unfortunately, before this. It's hard to kind of visualize, what's it going to look like. They can schedule appointments. We do a lot of telephone appointments talking to students, or we can have meetings just like this through Teams, where we can just chat with them about, what are they thinking, and we'll walk them through, anything they want to know. Now is also the time to apply for, we have 2 honors programs. We have the Hill Scholars Honors Program, And we have the STEM Scholars Program. Hill Scholars is for any type of major, any type of student, and it's really very cohort based. Actually, Christy, do you want to talk about Hill Scholars for a minute because you're more expert than I am?
Well, you are definitely an expert, but I can say that it is a cohort program where students go through about 20 to 25 students take their general education courses together at an honors level while taking courses towards their specific degree with other students who are in that specific degree. So they kind of get to live in almost two different worlds and have two different groups of friends and colleagues as they go through, with lots of other outside of the classroom involvement as well. You don't have to have a specific degree to be in the Hill Scholars Program.
Yeah, thank you. So STEM Scholars, the difference with STEM Scholars is that if you're in a STEM field, you're taking usually a lot of science and math, and you have lab components, and you don't have a lot of flexibility in how you can schedule your general education classes, and the classes are going to be required towards your degree program. So STEM Scholars schedule other classes for what they need, what the requirements are going to be. And then what links them together rather than general education classes is that they take a half-credit seminar each semester. So one is about professional and career development, one is transfer trips, and they'll get like the behind the scenes, amazing transfer trips at, the applied physics lab, or the behind the scenes, like they're in with the departments, on the engineering departments at the University of Maryland, and they get like the high level, basically bird's eye view of the labs and things like that, that no one else gets to see if they're going for a regular tour. So it's pretty amazing. They do, I already said professional development, they'll do, mock interviewing. And then the biggest part of it really is that they're going to, at the end, well, they'll work on a lot of transfer stuff too, but then they do a research-based project that is during their final semester. It's a 2.5 credit robust research project. It's interdisciplinary. So all the students that are in this program together are going to work on it together. So it's amazing to see how these, tremendous combination of, brains come together, right? Because they're like in all these different pathways, and they're all bringing different ideas together, and they work on these wonderful projects. So it's a fantastic opportunity if a student is interested in STEM, because often you don't even get that type of experience until you're in, your senior year of college. So they're getting this wonderful, wonderful research experience on their resume to take with them. Not only, just to put it on their resume, but really just it's giving them such a great sense of, is this a good field for me to be in? So that's a great program to think about as well. The other thing that is happening right now, which we'll talk about more, is apply for financial aid if you're graduating this year. So anyone that is, a senior right now looking to come to college next year in the fall should be applying for financial aid now. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes more at length. And then the last thing we want to mention here is that if your student has friends that are participating in dual enrollment and that are coming to Carroll, it's really important that they talk to their friends. My son is in 11th grade right now. He doesn't really know what he wants to do, but, just through cross country and sports, he's got friends that are older, that are in college this year already, and he's talking to them. He's asking their opinions and for their advice, which I think is, really good, because he doesn't want to hear anything that I have to say, even though I'm the director of admissions at a college, right? So, but I mean, we really do encourage that, because it's really good if they can get feedback from other students, especially students that have participated in dual enrollment. So many students, we have over 600 students that are in high school taking classes at the college at the same time. So encourage them to reach out and see if they can talk with, friends, get hooked up with them, through a high school counselor or whatever, just to get a sense of what it would be like to take a college level class. So that's really, really valuable, because they'll listen to those friends or those, people, their peers at the same level more than they will us sometimes, we know. Okay.
Candace is right that our high school age children don't always want to listen to us, even though we work at a college. However, they will listen to other people. So my son heard what he thinks is for the first time how great Carroll was from Candace and believed her, instead of me yammering on about it for the 15 years before he actually came here. So they are listening, and sometimes they listen to other adults, just not their parents. Okay, so let's talk about money a little bit. So students who have graduated from high school can get financial aid and scholarships. Students who are interested in dual enrollment, they actually get a discount that CCPS and the state and our county has worked out, that they get a discount for their classes. So they can't get financial aid, but they get a discount, and they get an even further discount if they take their dual enrollment class at their actual high school. So we have dual enrollment where students can come to Carroll and take their classes, which we do have some face-to-face classes right now, but a lot of them are also virtual like this. Or they're taking their dual enrollment classes being taught at their high school. Excuse me. So we do have discounts for those students. But they are not eligible for financial aid until they graduate from high school, and that's a federal rule. That's not a Carroll Community College rule. So if you're thinking about your high school graduate coming here, no matter when that time is, we want to make sure that we advise you to fill out the FAFSA. And the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it is a universal form. It is always free, so don't end up paying anybody to do this for you. FAFSA is the website that you go to and you set up your own account. And honestly, we have people who assume that they're not going to be eligible for any federal or state aid, but we think you should just go ahead and apply anyway. Because honestly, once you fill out that FAFSA form, from then on out, for all the years your student is in college, all you have to do is update it each year. You don't actually have to fill out the whole thing all over again. And even if you're not eligible for any kind of need-based aid at Carroll because our cost is low, you may qualify for once the tuition gets a little bit higher. So we say, go ahead and fill it out now and see what it says for you. And sometimes it'll help you learn that you are eligible for some need-based aid. And so let me back up. You can get financial aid that is either a grant, a scholarship, or a loan. And grants and scholarships are kind of that free money that you hear about that you don't have to pay back. And we try to make sure that you are going to get as many scholarships and grants as possible. And then to help fill in the gaps if needed, you can take out a loan. We really try to have students not take any loans out while they're in community college, because they probably need to save some of that loan money for their four-year school if that is going to become necessary there. So every year on October 1st, the FAFSA becomes available. It is open right now because we're past October 1st. Your FAFSA is based on your prior year's tax returns. So right now, as you fill out your FAFSA, it is based on your 2019 tax returns. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but life has changed quite a bit since 2019 happened. Unfortunately, for some people, their financial position is different now than it was when December of 2019 ended and you were figuring out your taxes for that year. If that is the case, and trust us, we know that that is the case for many, we just need you to let us know that your FAFSA tax returns don't reflect life right now. And as you fill out your FAFSA, we would ask that you email our financial aid office, really easy email to remember, financialaid@carrollcc.edu. I'll say that again in a few minutes. And let us know, I'm filling out my FAFSA based on 2019, but here's how my situation is different now than it was then. It happens all the time, unfortunately. Usually, well, we just want you to let us know so that we can help you through that process. There are certainly ways that we can let the federal government know that these taxes don't reflect what's happening right now. So that's just something to keep in mind. And honestly, any questions that you have filling out the FAFSA, we are happy to help you with those. And I'll be honest, I have lots of, when my kids were college age, their parents would call me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck on this question. And if I couldn't help them, I would send them to our financial aid office, which is amazing. And they know all the ins and outs of filling out these federal forms. So financialaid@carrollcc.edu is who you want to ask any questions to. And like I said, we think the best advice is for you to fill it out whether you think you're going to qualify for any aid or not, because from then on you can just update it each year without having to fill out all the forms again. So if we go on to the next slide, one of the grants that we offer, that the state of Maryland offers, is this Maryland College Promise grant or scholarship. It's gotten a lot of press in the last couple years, and I'm here to give you the good news and the bad news about it. There's lots of great things that were intended for this program. It's a state-run program, which means the Carroll Community College doesn't have a whole lot to do with it, but like other state and federal programs, we'll help kind of guide you through that process. Here are the good things. Here's the good news. You do not have to apply specifically to this specific scholarship. You do have to fill out the FAFSA, and then the state of Maryland is who will basically apply for you if you meet the eligibility requirements. So there's no special application that you have to fill out. You just have to do your FAFSA, which again opens on October 1 of the year before you plan on coming here. Other good news is that lots of students are eligible for this program. You can see here some of the eligibility requirements. Your GPA does not have to be, over and above stellar from high school. You can be applying for different programs. The financial responsibility of the parents or knowing what their adjusted gross income is, which is something you get from your tax forms, is not super low. I mean, it's a pretty good number that's there. So there's more Carroll County people who are eligible for this program. A couple things that have changed. It used to be that if you got this scholarship, you had to then work in the state of Maryland for 2 years afterwards. There is no obligation for that anymore. And nowadays you can be any age. So you don't have to be fresh out of high school to qualify for this scholarship program, which was an original eligibility rule when this program first started. So it's a very good program. It's trying to kind of meet your last dollars. If you have other scholarships, you apply those first, and it wants to fill in the gaps between what you still owe and what you can afford to pay. So that's the good news. And I would say that the only bad news here is that there are limited funds. And so the state of Maryland has a certain amount of money that they are going to give to all community college students all over the 16 community colleges in the state of Maryland. So we definitely have had students who meet all the eligibility requirements, but they weren't actually awarded the funds this year because the state of Maryland had so many people who were eligible that they ran out of money before they could get every student who was eligible. Super disappointing, but we have tried our very best to help students who fall into this category of these eligibility requirements but weren't awarded the scholarship. So if we go to the next page, I'll let you know a little bit about how we award other institutional scholarships. So we know that there's students who are going to get some federal financial aid, maybe through a Pell Grant, which is great. We have Maryland state programs through the Equal Access Grant and the part-time something grant that the state does, and then the Promise program as well. Those are wonderful programs, but we also have money here at Carroll through our institution, where we have had people who love our school so much that they have endowed scholarships for our students. And these scholarships can be very, very specific to a type of student in a certain program whose parent was a veteran, like really super specific. But then there's also some really general scholarships as well. And applying for these scholarships is vital to earning some money for students. So again, this is scholarship money, so it's not money that you have to pay back. And here's how it works. On our scholarship page, right around the middle of February, there becomes an active link for something called Award Spring. And we try to make sure that students who have applied to the college, who haven't yet enrolled, that we send them this link to say, hey, apply for these scholarships. And so what happens is the students create their own account in Award Spring. They fill out some initial questions. Some are very broad questions. Some are very specific questions. Were you in the jazz band at Manchester Valley High School when you were in high school? I mean, there could be very, very specific questions. And what happens is once that application is complete, the software matches students who answered questions a certain way. It matches them to scholarships that they would be eligible for. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work going on there. And honestly, it's time well spent to fill out those scholarship applications because there's money to give away. I think this year have given over like $300,000 worth of institutional scholarships. Yep. Institutional scholarships from students who applied through Award Spring. So mid-February, this becomes open. We have students fill it out for about a month and a half. You know, they've got this open period and then we close it. We award some scholarships. Anything that's left over that we didn't award, we'll open it back up in the summer to try to award again. So that's kind of those institutional scholarships are amazing. There's lots of funds to give to students, but you have to have that FAFSA filled out and you have to do the Award Spring application. One other one that you can see there on the screen is that if your child was duly enrolled, has a 3.0 GPA for their college classes, has taken 6 or more credits, they will get an automatic $500 scholarship when they apply to the college and get a full-time load. So if you're going to come to school here and you've already been duly enrolled and you did well, six credits or more, we're going to automatically award you $500, which is basically around the price of one 3-credit class, which is great. And you don't even have to do anything except for be a really good student when you are duly enrolled. So so that's the money stuff. I know you'll have questions about that, and if you're not asking them now, then we'll certainly have some answers for you at the end as well.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Christy.
Sure.
So I did put in the chat the financial aid at carrollcc.edu email address, and then information about. Sorry, I'm getting an echo with everything I say, so it's distracting me. So, when you fill this out, you'll send this to any college. You can send it to, 8 or 9 different colleges if you want to. So that's the other thing to know. You fill out the form once and you can send it wherever you need to. So, don't hesitate. It's just, the best thing to do, and getting it done early is really important. Okay, so general admissions. Like I was talking about a little bit earlier, we're open access. So all students are going to be accepted. There are some selective admissions programs like the Hill Scholars and the STEM Scholars, and like the nursing program, for example, physical therapist assistant. They have some gateway classes that need to be completed before students can actually apply, and then they have to be selected. But in general, students are going to fill out an application. You just go to our homepage of our website and you click on Apply Now or Apply and Register. It'll take you to this link. The student creates a student account and they will complete the application. It's free. It doesn't take much time at all. If a student is currently duly enrolled and they are going to apply or they're going to come here next fall, it's fine. All they're going to do is schedule a meeting to meet with an advisor. They don't need to reapply. They're already going to have an application in the system, and we're not going to have them reapply. We'll just update their information when they decide to come. The other thing, I don't have this on the slide, what I'm talking about, but the other thing is that if they're applying for Hill Scholars or for STEM Scholars and they're already dual enrollment, all they're going to do is log into their account that they already have in place right now, and they will fill out the supplemental materials for the other application. So it's really, really easy because we have everything online at this point. So the best thing you can do if they're asking you questions or asking for guidance is if they've already filled out an application, just have them log back into their account, and everything else they need to know will be there. So I was getting ahead of myself a little bit though. So for general admissions, there's direct course placement. Okay, so that means that if the student applies to the college, we just have to figure out what classes they're eligible to take. And so many students honestly are going to place with their high school GPA, assuming you're coming right out of high school. If you're not, it's still okay because we accept a GPA for, I think it's between 5 and 7 years after you've graduated from high school. So if you have a 3.0 unweighted GPA or higher, that is going to make you eligible to take a good majority of classes at the college. So for example, English 101 or, psychology, sociology, basic general education classes. Sometimes you're going to have to take a math placement test, depending on if you're a super high achieving math student, or you're trying to take a high level class. If you're going to go into calculus, for example, you're not going to be able to place there with your unweighted GPA, but you might be able to place there with one of these other things, such as SAT scores. I have here in parentheses that those are optional. They're always optional. They're not required unless you're applying for an honors program. It's just one way for students to place. So you've got the GPA, you've got SAT or ACT scores. If you don't have them, it's fine. We don't require them. We have some PARCC assessment scores that can be utilized. If a student has taken an Accuplacer test in the high school, we can accept those scores. And then if students are taking AP classes, if they've taken the advanced placement test, but not scored the 4 or the 5 that they need sometimes in order to get college credit, if they have a score of a 3, they can place directly into a higher level class with the score. So there's lots of different ways that students can place into classes without having to take any further action. So what we do is we have them call the admissions office or email the admissions office, and we have an appointment with them. We'll walk through all the different ways that they could be placing into classes with them. We'll ask them a bunch of questions so they don't even need to worry about it. And then if they don't have a way to directly place into the math class they want to take, for example, at that point, we'll tell them, you need to take the college placement test in the math area or in the English area, and we'll get them all set up for that. So the majority of students, though, are not going to have to test. All right, so general admissions process is that they're going to provide any scores they have. They're going to take a placement test if they need to. Again, I should say the good news is there's no failing a placement test. This is just placing into a class. So I'll use the math example again. There's so many different math classes that we offer at the college. There's like a basic level of general education math classes. Statistics would be a really good example of that. We have an introduction to college level math class. A lot of students will start off there. A lot of students need to go into higher level math for, business and science classes and engineering. So they may want to try to take the placement test to place up into like pre-calculus directly or to calculus directly, so they don't have to start off and kind of work through a sequence of classes. So that's what that's about. And we will help them to figure that out and to determine that when they meet with their academic advisor. So an academic advisor I mentioned before is really, all the advisors can talk to any students about any major, but they do, they're kind of specialized too. So we try to schedule them with whoever is going to be able to help them best meet their pathway requirements so that they can help them not only for planning for their 4 semesters, not 4 years, for 4 semesters at Carroll, but then also for whatever the next steps are going to be. They're very, very familiar with a lot of the transfer institutions in the state of Maryland for sure, and they can help make sure that they're not going to misstep along the way at all. And then we have new student orientation. So if you're a dual enrollment student taking one full-time student, your returning student who hasn't been at the college for a little while, any of those things, we have new student orientation sessions that students can sign up for, that parents can sign up for. Obviously, there's so much technology at this point that's happening. So we have like technology sessions to make sure that students know how to get into their classes, how to log in. A lot of it is going to be like Google Classroom. If you have your student in the CCPS school system, it's going to be similar, although we use Microsoft Teams. Many of our classes are happening in this remote environment right now. So they sign up for certain times, just like this, and they're taking their class just like they would be in the school system at this point. We also have fully online classes. We also have some face-to-face classes happening right now while it's safe. So all of those types of things will be talked about at new student orientation. So at any point that a student is going to start taking classes, it's really, really important for both parents and students to attend whatever sessions they can and have the availability to do. Right now they're happening remotely because then they'll feel really comfortable knowing how to log into their class, how to take care of business, what the support services are at the college, things like that. So those are just all really important details to kind of, tuck away in the back of your mind right now. Okay, so go ahead, Christy.
So hold on, folks. We're getting there. You're doing great.
We are.
We're almost there, I promise. So your student has decided to make this great decision. It's a great family decision. It's a great educational decision. It's a great financial decision to come to Carroll. We know that your student is going to love being here. The transition can be a challenge, like it is no matter where they go to college, but we have a great track record of being very, very responsive to what students need. We have students, and some of your children may be these students, who come in, they've already taken full responsibility for their own education. They will never kind of question what they're doing. They're spot on. They are driven. They never need our help at all. That's awesome. That's wonderful. We will cheer them on. We'll, give them great kudos. But most students aren't quite there. I mean, they're really trying to figure out what's college all about. The big academic shift in college, when you're in high school, things are presented to you in a certain way where, honestly, for a lot of smart high school students, if they're paying attention in class 90% of the time, they're getting 90% of the information that they need, and maybe 10% of the information they need to be getting on their own at home. In college, it's not exactly flipped, but students are responsible for a fair amount of work outside the classroom and then using class time to discuss what they read the night before. So it's not the same as coming in and having a teacher do full lecture and then talking. It's like, hey, read this stuff. Let's not take the time of, you can just read the facts and the information, but then come to class and let's have a really robust conversation about it. So there's a fair amount of pre-class work, and that's a big shift for a lot of high school students. So we have set up tons and tons of support for students. First of all, workshops and our academic center to help students understand what I just explained to you, but explaining it to them in a way that makes sense to them in terms of specifics for their class. Here's how this class normally runs. Here's some really great ideas for you and advice on how to do well in the class. We talk all the time in the beginning of new student orientation about how much tutoring is available to students, how much peer one-on-one tutoring or virtual tutoring or drop-in tutoring. But to be honest, when a student is first starting college, they're like, I'm not going to need tutoring. Everything's fine. I'm going to turn over a new leaf, or I know how to do this really well. So we tell them all these great resources that we have, our Disability Support Services office, our academic center, but sometimes it just kind of goes right over their head because they don't need that information at that time. They need it later, and we know that. So when it comes to this life cycle of the college student, especially the first year college student, it's like they come in, at first life just feels great, right? You go to class, you're meeting new people, you kind of see you're in class a lot less than you were when you were in high school. You have all this extra time, but I'm putting that in quotes, and things seem pretty good. And then a couple of weeks in, reality hits, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm behind. Why am I behind? Because maybe you weren't doing all that pre-work that you could have been doing, and you haven't learned that lesson quite yet. And honestly, we understand it. And so giving students some responsibility, but also having a little bit of a safety net there for them. We understand this life cycle. That's when we start to talk to students about the academic center and all the different workshops and ways to learn how to use your calculator or your technology, or how to write an essay, and how our writing consultant can do all this work for you. We remind them of all those things that we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago, but they weren't really ready to listen to hear it. And then we have student hours. So in the old days, we called these office hours, where faculty would sit in their office and wait for students to come to them. But for most students, going to see your teacher outside of school felt kind of like going to see the principal, or like you were in trouble. So instead of calling them office hours, we call them student hours. Like a couple hours every week, the faculty member has no meetings, isn't grading papers. They're waiting for you to come in and ask them questions. So we try to make that really, really accessible for students to realize you've got this great resource, your own teacher, ready to answer lots of your questions for you. So reality kind of hits students. They tune into the resources that Carroll has. They realize how caring this community is about students and about learning the content. They get through to whatever break happens, whether it's spring break or Thanksgiving break. Then they see they've got things under control. Success happens. They come back the next semester. Everything's great, right? It's always perfect like that. But honestly, it's about giving students the resources they need when they need them, as opposed to piling it all on their head at new student orientation that they may never remember. So we try to make sure we're giving students all that information as we go. Last thing I'll say about this is that students who are thinking about their career, we think about career differently at our school, and I think we think about it the right way. We try to have students assess their own skills, abilities, and interests to come up with an area that they want to study, which leads to a degree, which leads to maybe another degree, then it leads to a job. Instead of students kind of going backwards and saying, I want to be this job title, and now what are all the things I need to do to get there? Because honestly, for students who are in high school right now, there's job titles that haven't even been invented yet. They're going to be available when they graduate from college. So matching skills and abilities with a degree program is kind of the first thing we try to do. And we have career seminars and classes and workshops and individual appointments to help students make some of those connections so that they can make good choices in terms of choosing courses that lead to a degree at Carroll. So that's that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so benefits of earning an associate's degree. So I think I already said this earlier, so I won't spend much time on this at all, but it's a recognized degree. So if you have an associate's degree, life happens, you start your bachelor's degree. With an associate degree, you have an earned credential. You can get a job having your associate degree. So for whatever reason, if you move forward and are not able to complete the next degree in the time frame that you were thinking, then you've already got this and not just a bunch of credits. So it makes a big, big difference. So we really, really encourage students to complete their degree before they transfer on to the next level. We have a lot of career programs that would be associate degree, like you can get an associate's degree in cybersecurity or digital fabrication and design. There's different pathway programs like that where you really can be out working without going on any further. Our cybersecurity students take many certifications, and with those certifications, honestly, they're getting jobs leave before they complete, but they're getting jobs right away. So there's a lot of high demand, program options like that, where students don't necessarily need to go on further if they don't want to, at least immediately. So we have an associate's to bachelor degree nursing program. We have a whole bunch of partnership agreements. And so as students are entering into the nursing program, it's one of those selective admission, like limited enrollment programs, and they need to take certain gateway classes, sequence of classes. For nursing, of course, it's mostly science and some math, and then some other general education classes. And then at that point, they would apply for the clinical nursing program. So what we've done is we've come up with agreements with other four-year colleges, and there's quite a few of them, where if they're accepted into Carroll's clinical nursing program, at the same time they're working through Carroll's clinical nursing program, they can also be starting off their bachelor's degree at the same time. So they'll get 2 degrees. They'll get their associate degree in nursing at Carroll once they finish that, but they also will be working on their bachelor's degree in nursing simultaneously. So those are just, those are partnership programs that are invaluable. They don't have to wait to complete the associate degree to start the bachelor's program. They're going to kind of do them at the same time. So it's a heavy workload, but it's an amazing opportunity for students. So just know that there's a whole bunch of agreements available if anyone that's out there today is thinking about nursing as a field. And then for transfer, we have general education requirements. So you complete all your general education requirements, you complete your associate's degree, and then the biggest thing to know is that transfer is guaranteed in the state of Maryland. So if you're going to go to Towson or any of the public, I don't know why I'm just saying Towson, UMBC, University of Maryland, Salisbury, Frostburg, any of those schools, we have many, many great options. So if you have an AA degree, you're guaranteed admission at one of those four-year schools in the state of Maryland, which is amazing. It's much easier to transfer into one of those schools than it is to apply right out of high school and get into one of those schools, because the competition is fierce, right? And they don't have anything to look at other than your high school transcript. I mean, the normal things, the standardized test scores, the high school transcript, recommendations, and things like that, right? But most of the time, students don't have many college credits. Maybe they've taken some AP classes, maybe they've earned credit or they haven't earned credit, maybe dual enrollment. When you have an AA degree, the four-year schools know for sure that you have an academic record of proven success, right? You've earned a degree already. They know if they take you that you're going to be successful. So not only are you going to be guaranteed admission into the school, also often there's a lot of transfer scholarship money available too. More so at the private level, because private schools are really, really, invested in getting, great students to come there and finish off with them, because, sometimes they can stay longer and get a master's degree too. So there's a lot of really wonderful opportunities. Many students are choosing us first, but sometimes, they don't get into, the four-year school that they really want to be going to initially. And you know what? It's okay, because they're going to have a wonderful opportunity with us if they come to us, and they're going to get in when they get their associate's degree, which is pretty amazing. The last part of that is that once you have your associate's degree, that your GPA from high school, your SAT scores, your ACT scores, all of those different factors, they don't matter anymore. It's not that they don't matter, but they're just predictors of how successful you're going to be when you're in college. And once you have the degree, it's no longer, they don't need that predictor, right? Because they know exactly what you've done already and what you can do. So just keep that in the back of your minds as you're talking to your students. I told you already, I have an 11th grade son who he's starting to talk to his friends. What am I going to do, Mom? I'm not, he's thinking about getting as much credit as he can before he starts applying to colleges. And he knows all this stuff, because I've told him this 1,000 times. What will he decide? We don't know, right? But that guaranteed admission when you transfer, if you start off here, is just, it's really, really a wonderful, wonderful option for students. And we hope that many will take advantage of it. So let's see, we have more transfer information here. So what we want you to know is that students can transfer anywhere. And I think I'm supposed to be letting Christy talk right now. I'm not supposed to be talking. So I'll talk for a minute and then she can fill in. But this is our last slide, by the way, because I know that we're running way longer than we said we were going to. But our students transfer everywhere. It's not just public schools in the state of Maryland or private schools in the state of Maryland. Our students go everywhere. So starting here is going to work no matter what they're going to do. Out-of-state schools, the only option. So let me back up for a minute. In the state of Maryland, we do have an articulation kind of database that helps us to determine it helps students to plan, right, how their classes are going to transfer. Outside of the state of Maryland, agreements too. And then so what we do is we work just more closely with those schools. But what I say to students is, you want to go to Virginia Tech, you want to go wherever it is that you want to go outside of James Madison, wherever you're thinking about going, just contact them and just say, I want to go to a community college first, and then I want to transfer here. They're going to work with you. And many of them have very robust kind of like transfer websites where if you log in, you'll be able to see exactly what you need to be taking if you go somewhere else initially. And then it's going to tell you exactly how your courses are going to transfer in there too. And if not, they'll talk to you about it because they, again, for the same reasons, want you. So, there's a lot of opportunities like that. Your advisor will help you when you come to Carroll. They're going to have a meeting with you initially, and they're going to help you to work through some of these things and tell you what you need to be thinking about. And then websites are just a great, great tool, and visits, which we know are hard right now, but still the visits are happening, and four-year schools are doing tons of, info sessions online just like this right now. And they have tours, very robust tours that you can look at and things like that. So general education classes are going to transfer no matter what. So I think that, at this point we are at questions, and I should probably stop talking because we have been talking to you for an hour. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Candace, why don't you do the next slide and let them see our contact info before you go.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay. So I'm Candace. Probably over there. And here's our phone numbers and our email addresses, and you can contact us anytime you want to. We'd be more than happy to schedule appointments with anyone that would like follow-up. And honestly, someone that works in my office, she is going to send out a communication to you tomorrow, letting you know how to contact us as well. So if you're trying to scratch his sound right now, you don't even need to worry about it, because we will be following up with you tomorrow so that you can, have everything that we were talking about this evening. So with that, if you have any other questions, we will stay here and we will answer them. We will follow up on anything that you have questions about. And also, if you want to put any questions in the chat, that's okay too. So whatever you feel comfortable with, we are happy to do with you right now. Or we talked so much that there's nothing left, right? It's one or the other. So
we explained all that so well that there's no questions.
Maybe not, right?
All right.
Okay. So you can feel free to turn on your camera and ask a question. You can feel free to put something in the chat. We'll hang out for a few minutes. We really, really appreciate your time and attention. We know that you're listening. Obviously, you stuck around the whole time, so we really appreciate that. We really do. Hopefully, you learned some new things. Hopefully, you learned some things to share, or we gave you some things to think about too. So it can be a really overwhelming process, college admissions anywhere, especially if it's your first time going through it. And there are so many different choices and options available. As we know, the more choices you have, the more overwhelming it becomes. So we'll help you to figure things out, as best that we can. I see someone typing.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Oh my goodness, a whole bunch of things. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, let's see. I just want to see if there's any questions. My son applied for, we haven't heard about the mother. Okay. Yep.
That's a good question.
Yeah, before hearing from the fourth. Okay, so that's a great question. So the timeline is this. I didn't talk about the timeline. If you are looking to come here next fall, registration will begin in April. So honestly, he can apply anytime, but he doesn't need to until March-ish, around there. So that should be what he's thinking about. He can apply to Carroll. He can, meet with someone. He can even set up classes. And then, if planned, as long as he drops his classes before classes begin, you would get a full tuition refund. So it's a smart thing to do. Many students do that. So no problem at all. April is when registration begins. Late August, early September is when fall classes begin, just depending on, I don't know off the top of my head. I should know that. I don't know if it's late August or early September, but either way, registration goes all the way until classes begin. So it's ongoing for a very long time. Students can make schedule adjustments. I tell them, you know what, go ahead and get a schedule set up. Even if they're waiting on a four-year college, often they're also waiting on, they're going to get a part-time job, and they're thinking, oh, I don't know what my, work hours are going to be. I say to students, you know what, go ahead and get your schedule set up, and if it's between you and someone else that you have to work with your boss, and you already have your college schedule all set up, they're more likely to work with you, and work around that with you. So it's fine for them to set up, a plan, get it all in place. And then if they decide to do something, they can withdraw, from drop their classes before they start for a refund, no problem.
Yeah, one of the other pieces of advice that I give families is to apply, just like you apply to lots of different four-year schools, apply, to Carroll too. And then once April comes and you've got to make a decision, you want to lay out all your options and think about finances and think about comfort level and think about safety and think about location and have some things to choose from. So keeping us in that mix makes a lot of sense. I think financially, I know who would probably win, but having your the opportunity to make a choice will also help to empower your child as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if anyone else has questions, we I'm looking at the chat right now. Sounds good. Okay, great. Anyone else has any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or I will stop recording at this point. So if you're, camera shy, I'm going to stop recording right now.